Hey, hi. Yeah, man. So I'm back. I'm back. Yo, what's up? Yeah, man. Motivation is a scam. We know. Now we know that. I don't think that's new information to you. Never. So I had these bursts of inspiration, because inspiration pushes you to do. Motivation, you could be motivated and still be useless. But yeah, man, that's what's up. My best source of motivation is there's one video. Of course, I know it should be internal, whatever. But my favorite video of motivation. I personally just hate motivation for different reasons. But yeah, I have two favorite videos. One that speaks about discipline. Yes, again, discipline, because there's some serious truth in that. Where the guy was just saying, even everything that's great in the world is built from discipline. Otherwise, we were not gonna have the disciplines of ABC, the disciplines of philosophy, the disciplines of music, the disciplines of sports, the disciplines. So discipline comes with order. It's literally just putting things into order. Yeah, man. And then the other one is, I think it's by Jordan Peterson, and he says that you don't know how much more you are because you need to push yourself that hard. And of course, it's evident with like gym. As soon as you start going, then your body starts sort of coming out. So it starts showing you exactly how much more you can do. You start lifting, 5 kg dumbbells. The next thing you know, you are fucking deadlifting, 180 kilograms. Where did that come from? Yes, it's the building of muscle, but where does that come from? So yeah, man, that's just great. And then there are, of course, other sort of motivation videos that you must relate to for them to actually get you going. But then it soon dies out. So that was me last week. Last week I was so motivated and inspired. I was like, I'm doing this video every day. Yeah, man. But also the way my life is set up, I think I can only make a video once a week. Yeah, man. I don't have to sit and wait for inspiration. But yeah, that's stuff is falling off. What was I saying? I can do one video and then cut it. Like I said, because of my phone capacity. If it wasn't that, then I was most probably gonna have to do one video per week, like 30 minutes long video, and then that would inspire me to make more 30-minute videos per week. Because then, if from last week I have like 3, I would actually have 1, and that would, if I didn't chop it down, I would then have 1, which doesn't sound much like progress. So yeah, man, those 10-minute videos are like fake progress. Anyway, so today I just wanna continue and finish off with the overstimulation. And it's not much of a conversation, so I'm just going to be reading from one of the greatest books I think I've ever read, and I read a lot, Future Shock by Alvin Toffler. Yeah, man, let's go into it. Eons ago, the shrinking seas cast millions of unwilling aquatic creatures into the newly created beaches. Deprived of their familiar environment, they died, gasping and clawing for each additional instant of eternity. Only a fortunate few, better suited to amphibian existence, survived the shock of change. Today, says sociologist Lawrence Summ of the University of Wisconsin. Guys, please also excuse any of my misreadings or mispronunciations, because this book is actually packed with funny words that I've never came across. Anyways, we are going through a period as traumatic as the evolution of man's predecessors from sea creatures to land creatures. Those who can adapt will, those who can't will either go on surviving somehow at a lower level of development, or will perish washed up on the shore. Just to catch up on the last conversation we had about stimulation, I was saying that there's an argument, of course, about social media and how it's shrinking our focus, shrinking our attention span. Apparently we are sitting on just about 7 minutes now, and at shorter levels it's like 7 seconds. You know, when you go into, let's say, TikTok, which I try by all means to stay away from. I only go there so when a friend or a sibling or a cousin sends me a link, or a friend, a contact, whatever, send me a link, I go there. The next thing I know, it's been 30 minutes because I stay away for so long as well. But yeah, man, I think I'm doing good with staying away from short content videos. Hey man, by the end of 30 minutes you don't even remember the first video you watched. What a waste. So yeah, man, for you it was just, you know, but the truth of the matter is that there's programming that's happening, so it's going to sit at the back of your head. Talking about motivation, so talking about sitting at the back of your mind. So motivation, I used to have this thing of consuming motivational videos, and I'd be like, no man, I don't even need to internalize this thing. As long as I'm listening to it, it's gonna do something at the back of my head, subconsciously, so it will do the work. My work is done, just consume. Yeah man, but I didn't like it. Let's continue reading, please. To assert that, so I was saying about motivation that even though the attention span is shortening, if it is, for those who agree it is, which I argue isn't really, the content is also becoming very heavy, you know. So from that argument, it becomes we are overstimulated. And the truth of the matter is that human beings generally would be overstimulated, but by whatever invention they find or whatever thing exciting that they find, that would stimulate them. You know, if we didn't have farms, for example, and it was exciting to find this fruit, it was obviously going to tingle you and stimulate you, and then you become sort of addicted. You're like, you know what, I'm going to start looking for these juicy fruits everywhere I go. It was for that stimulation kick. Now, of course, we have artificial food even, just to continue stimulating ourselves in that regard. Stimulate our taste buds, of course, all of that drives back to the brain. Yeah man, we will always look for stimulation. And we know with like adult industry, it's all about pleasure and stimulation. So human beings, I think, generally, because of their consciousness and their awareness of what's going on around the world and how their bodies respond to certain things, they are able to then create anything and everything that stimulates them. So I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with a short attention span, as long as within those short periods of whatever there's heavy stimulation, which then starts the argument that we are being overstimulated. It has always been great, and it goes back to my source of motivation, that there's always more of you, and it must be stimulated to come out. It does not just surface, it must be called out, and that's by stimulation. I don't know if it's Brian Tracy or Tony Robbins, probably Brian Tracy, who was saying, whatever you're looking for, you're gonna have to read, because you're gonna come across it, sooner or later, because it's not gonna jump out. You know, you're gonna have to read, you're gonna have to stumble upon it, and that's how you'll find it. So you need to consume everything and anything that you can. That's if there's something you're looking for but you're not even sure what it is. So yeah man, that's probably one of the reasons I started reading heavy. To assert that man must adapt seems superfluous. English. He has already shown himself to be among the most adaptable of life forms. He has survived equatorial summers and Antarctic winters. He has survived the Chow and Fukuta, probably the hot and cold. He has walked the lunar surface. Such accomplishments gives rise to the glib notion that his adaptive capabilities are infinite, yet nothing could be further from the truth. For despite all his heroism and stamina, man remains a biological organism, a biosystem, and all such systems operate within inexorable limits. Temperature, pressure, caloric intake, oxygen, carbon dioxide levels all set absolute boundaries beyond which man, as presently constituted, cannot venture. Thus, when we hurl a man into outer space, we surround him with an exquisitely designed microenvironment that maintains all these factors within livable limits. How strange, therefore, that when we hurl a man into the future, we take few pains to protect him from the shock of change. It is as though NASA had shot Armstrong and Aldrin naked into the cosmos. It is the thesis of this book that there are discoverable limits to the amount of change that the human organism can absorb, and that by endlessly accelerating change without first determining these limits, we may submit masses of men to demands they simply cannot tolerate. We run the high risk of throwing them into that peculiar state that I have called future shock. We may define future shock as the distress, both physical and psychological, that arises from an overload of the human organism's physical adaptive systems and its decision-making processes. Put more simply, future shock is the human response to overstimulation. Different people react to future shock in different ways. Its symptoms also vary according to the stage and intensity of the disease. These symptoms range all the way from anxiety, hostility to helpful authority, and seemingly senseless violence to physical illness, depression, and apathy. Its victims often manifest erratic swings in interest and lifestyle, followed by an effort to crawl into their shells through social, intellectual, and emotional withdrawal. They feel continually bugged or harassed and want desperately to reduce the number of decisions they must take. To understand this syndrome, we must pull together from such scattered fields as psychology, neurology, communications theory, and endocrinology. What science can tell, what science can tell us about human adaptation. There is as yet no science of adaptation per se, nor is there any systematic listing of the diseases of adaptation. Yet, evidence now sluicing in from a variety of disciplines makes it possible to sketch the rough outlines of a theory of adaptation. For while researchers in these disciplines often work in ignorance of each other's efforts, their work is elegantly compatible, forming a distinct and exciting pattern. It provides solid underpinnings for the concept of future shock. Life change and illness. What actually happens to people when they are asked to change again and again? To understand the answer, we must begin with the body, the physical organism itself. Fortunately, a series of startling but as yet unpublicized experiments have recently cast revealing light on the relationship of change to physical health. These experiments grow out of the work of the late Dr. Harold G. Wolff at the Cornell Medical Center in New York. Wolff repeatedly emphasized that the health of the individual is intimately bound up with the adaptive demands placed on him by the environment. One of Wolff's followers, Dr. Lawrence E. Hinkle Jr., has termed this the human ecology approach to medicine and has argued passionately that disease need not be the result of any single specific agent such as a germ or a virus, but a consequence of many factors including the general nature of the environment surrounding the body. Hinkle has worked for years to sensitize the medical profession to the importance of environmental factors in medicine. Today, with spreading alarm over air pollution, water pollution, urban crowding, and over such factors, more and more health authorities are coming around to the ecological notion that the individual needs to be seen as part of a total system, and that is his health is dependent upon many subtle external factors. It was another of Wolff's colleagues, however, Dr. Thomas H. Holmes, who came up with the idea that change itself, not this or that specific change, but the general rate of change in a person's life, could be one of the most important environmental factors of all. Originally from Cornell, Holmes is now at the University of Washington School of Medicine, and it was there with the help of a young psychiatrist named Richard Ray, that he created an ingenious research tool named the Life Change Unit Scale. This was a device for measuring how much change an individual has experienced in a given span of time. Its development was an important methodological breakthrough, making it possible for the first time to quantify, at least crudely, the rate of change in individual life. Reasoning that different kinds of life changes strikes us with different forces, Holmes and Ray began by listing as many such changes as they could: a divorce, a marriage, a move to a new house. Such events affect each of us differently. Moreover, some carry greater impact than others. A vacation trip, for example, may represent a pleasant break in the routine, yet it can hardly compare in impact with, say, the death of a parent. Holmes and Ray next took their list of life changes to thousands of men and women in many walks of life in the United States and Japan. Each person was asked to rank order the specific items to the list according to how much impact each had, which changes required a great deal of coping or adjustment. Which one were relatively minor? To Holmes and Ray's surprise, it turned out that there is a widespread agreement among people as to which changes in their lives require major adaptation and which ones are comparatively unimportant. This agreement about the impactfulness of various life events extends even across national and language barriers. People tend to know and to agree on which changes hits the hardest. Given this information, Holmes and Ray were able to assign numerical weights to each type of life change. Thus, each item on their list was ranked by its magnitude and given a score accordingly. For example, in the death of one spouse is rated as 100 points. Then moving to a new home is rated by most people worth only 20 points. The vacation 13, and death of a spouse, incidentally, is almost universally regarded as the single most impactful change that can befall a person in the normal course of his life. Now, Holmes and Ray were ready for the next step. Armed with their life change unit scale, they began to question people about the actual pattern of life in their lives. The scale made it possible to compare the changefulness of one person's life with that of another. By studying the amount of change in a person's life, could we learn anything about the influence of change itself on health? To find out, Holmes, Ray, and other researchers compiled the life change scores of literally thousands of individuals and began the laborious task of comparing these with the medical histories of these same individuals. Never before had there been a way to correlate change and health. Never before had there been such a detailed data on patterns of change in individual lives. I hope as I'm reading this, you're actually starting to think of how sort of the sicknesses that are arising with the youth today. Because according to this conversation in this chapter and their research, it shows that the most impactful thing in a human's life is more their environment that then causes the health problem. I think I'm gonna stop reading here. We'll see how it goes because this video is a bit long. I want to say something. Anyways, I don't have a big following, so I think I am safe to say this, that I don't necessarily and particularly believe in some of these mental illnesses, including depression. We'll talk about it another day, but my base has always been exactly this that I'm reading. Environment, Bafetu. There's so much truth that is kept away from you. In protection, of course, it's out of love. People who love you will lie to you to protect you. And it's the case with some of the environments. Family, parents, older siblings, they will try to protect you all the time. They'll make you change perspective of the environment you find yourself in, which could be literally anything. Remember, we're speaking just about how they impact your health. So now we have all these mental illnesses, social illnesses. It's funny, man. And really, when you look at it, it's just you responding to the environment that you find yourself in. Therefore, how real is the illness if it's just you reacting to maybe the change or the environment itself, So yeah, man, of course, and this is one of the difficult conversations to have with baby boomers, because that's how we try to make them understand who we are, how we think, why we suffer from the things that we suffer from. It's simply because of changed environments. They grew up in a different environment. We are living in a different, usually we call it a different time, but literally that means a change of things, a change of environments, a change of environmental factors. So yeah, man, let's continue this on the next episode. Enjoy the rest of your day.